So hi everyone, my name is Tushar Gupta. I'm a software developer at Canonical. I'm specifically a Prof 1 and I work in the Launchpad team. I'm based out of India. And today I'm going to present how we, Launchpad team, supercharged our local setup from 60 minutes to 5 minutes using LXD, LXD-Image-Builder and Cloud-Init. Moving on. Okay, so a quick raise of hands for people who know where Ubuntu packages are built. Yes, so I mean, I didn't knew it as well. So it's essentially Launchpad. So every time you do a apt upgrade, apt update, all the packages that come in from, those packages are built on our little machines. And yep, it's Canonical Launchpad. So in order to get you excited for this project, I'm going to share some fun facts about it. So yeah, fun facts about Launchpad. So we're excited to contribute back to it. Launchpad is old enough to drink beer. This project started in 2004. The first commit was done in 2004. And I think one of the interesting fun facts is that it has commits from the CEO itself, which was quite amusing for me because I kind of went back in the history and stalked this commit to just see how CEOs write code. The next fun fact about Launchpad is that we can build for 8 different architectures. We support all the famous ones, ARM, RISC-V, AMD, PPC64EL, and there are a lot more. And Launchpad is not just code hosting. For people who know Launchpad, I think it's, people draw a lot of parallels with GitHub, but it's not just code hosting. There are a lot of other features. For example, you have personal packages, which are like repositories for you to host your Debian packages. And there are bug tracker, which is a bit different from your general bug tracker that you see on other platforms. It allows you to track bugs across projects. And then you have translations and a lot of other features. But yeah, Launchpad is not just code hosting. So I hope this gets you a bit excited about Launchpad. And I think if I get excited about an open source project, what I do is I just try to set it up locally and fiddle around with it, change some code, see how things break and work. So let's try and set up Launchpad locally. Okay, so first of all, we'll install LXD. I'll get into more details on why LXD, but for now, let's just go with it. LXD is an open source, lightweight container management and VM management solution. So you can spin up VMs real quick with using LXD. Then you create an LXD profile. An LXD profile is essentially a configuration that you can associate with your instance. So you basically have an image, then you add LXD profile, and then you can create instances that follows those profile. Then you launch an LXD container, then you clone Launchpad, then you bootstrap the container for SSH keys. So essentially you need to connect your remote IDs into the LXD VM, so you need your public keys to be there. Then you run the rocket fuel script. A lot of terminology in Launchpad is around space terms. For example, Launchpad is like place where you launch your projects or the rocket ships. So a lot of the script that sets up Launchpad is using this term called rocket fuel. And then what you need to do is you need to go and watch 1 or 2 episodes of Friends, depending on the system. I have a potato machine, so it takes around 40 minutes. So I can like pull in two episodes of Friends. The reason is that Launchpad does not directly install from pip. Instead, we have all our external dependencies stored in a place, and we pull it from there, and then we compile wheels for it. So it actually takes a bit of time for your local machine to compile all those dependencies. And after that, you then run another script which will set up database and do a bunch of more plumbing for you. And at the very end, you cross your fingers and hope that Launchpad starts. So this was a lot. And in all these little arrows, there are a lot of steps that I have not mentioned here. So each of these arrows means a manual step that you have to do. And every time human does things, they make errors. So your probability of like getting Launchpad running in the first attempt is very low. And I think it kind of bums out your purpose of being excited about Launchpad and like fiddling with it. So when I joined this team, I think I was excited as well, and then it took me a bit of time to get the setup up and running. So I started looking into how can I make this much fun for new contributors to just have a quick local instance running. Okay, on average this takes 60 minutes, but it depends. So this leads to our next question, can we do better? And I think the universal answer for this question should be, always. We can always do better. So in order to make Launchpad contributor friendly, there are a bunch of things, but essentially what I felt that we needed two things to make this the whole setup better, which was to save my 40 minutes and have all the dependencies pre-compiled and then automate each and every part of the process. So I want automation scripts everywhere so that I don't mess up changing configurations on my host, on my VMs, and then me repeating the process again to set up Launchpad. So I'm coming back to the question of why LXD. So if you think, a lot of question that I get is why not use something like an OCI container. So one of the reasons why I chose LXD is that if you think about an OCI container, it's very much suited for deployments. So OCI containers have life cycles which are tied to the main process. So I must be sure that some people have worked with Docker here. It's like an OCI based container which allows you to ship your code or run your applications on production. But all these OCI based containers, their life cycle are tied to the main process. So for example, at the very end, you do something like Python start server. When that process goes down, the container goes down. And if you think really closely in terms of a development machine that you need, you essentially need a VM which is hosted either locally or maybe somewhere on the cloud. So OCI containers are not the perfect fit here. Also, if you try to install snaps inside containers, you might have to do a bit more plumbing, and there are Docker images that just works out of the box, but if in case you use something lightweight which does not have all the necessary features, it will break. It does not have systemd init support. So for all these reasons, I think using something which is more closer to the local machine that you're developing in was a better option. So that's why we went with LXD, and that's why I think LXD has been used before as well. And it also allows you to export your local development environment and ship it to senior engineers when you are stuck with some debug, a bug which you can't debug. So now that we have aligned on that we are using LXD, let's go. So as I mentioned that we'll be using, now I need a tool using which I can build an image. So on Googling, I was aware that Canonical is publishing LXD images. So if you do like LXD launch Ubuntu, there would be pre-built images already present. So I was aware that Canonical is building images somewhere, so there must be some tool. So I found LXD-Image-Builder. It's a pretty neat tool. It essentially allows you to declaratively define your image config. And in order to use it, it's quite simple. All you have to do is you go to the LXD's doc. There they have a bunch of templates that you can just copy and update the necessary keys in it or the values that you want to change. So for example, I'll go a bit more into detail on what specific values we changed for Launchpad, but essentially you can update the image name, the packages, etc. And there are actions and triggers to which you can hook your custom logic. So essentially when, let's say, all the updates of packages and all the package installing is done, you can essentially use a trigger called post files or post packages and add your custom logic there to install Launchpad. So in order to build that, these are all the different configurations that it supports. For us, we just use the image, the packages, and the actions. But if you have more complex use cases, you can also check out the other options, which would be source, targets, mappings. Just read the docs. I don't think I have time to explain each of them, but yeah. Coming to what changes we exactly made. So under the packages section, we just defined the packages that we need. We use day-to-day for our local development, Vim, Git, Cloud-Init, etc. Then what we did is we defined a trigger. There are 4 triggers essentially. So we used a trigger called post files, which is the trigger that is run at the very last of all the steps. So and then I just plugged the Launchpad script there. So you can see I created a bash script and I just used some bash magic or bash voodoo to add my scripts. So what I'm doing is I'm just downloading Launchpad. I'm essentially doing all the steps that I showed in the initial slide, but I'm just doing it in the script so people don't mess it up. Okay. Which leads to the last part of it is actually building the image. So Now we have the Launchpad build, Launchpad's LXD build image. Uh, and then now that we have a Launchpad build image, I would like for everyone to wait and think about what exactly more do you need in a development environment. So uh, for applications that you want to deploy in production, I think just building an image is fine. But for development environments, I think you need a bit more of user-specific configuration. What I mean by that is, so for instance, in Launchpad, in order for you to connect your VS Code or any ID to the container, you will be needing your public SSH keys in the container. It would be very handy for me if those SSH keys are already present in the VM, so I can just directly connect my VS Code to the container. There could be more customizations around setting up Git remotes, etc. So you need some runtime configurations as well. So that led to the second problem that I wanted to solve. Now that we have built a generic Launchpad image, how do we solve for runtime configurations that we have? So, yep, I googled again and found two more tools which I can use, which is LXC profiles and Cloud-Init. So LXC profile, it's another declarative configuration based tool, so you can specify all the config that you want for your containers, and you can define the networking that they use, you can define the storage, you can define the limits that your VM should have, so that in case it does not hog all your computer resources. I think the storage part is quite important, because for development environments you ideally want to create a device mount, or have the files in the VM to be mounted onto the host OS. And then so LXC profile is just used to configure the instance that will be created. And in order to actually run some custom logic, there's a tool called Cloud-Init, which is an open source solution for first time boot customization. So Cloud-Init is used a lot by a lot of famous public cloud providers to initialize the VM. So every time I think you go to AWS and create a VM, you'll find some Cloud-Init process doing some customizations there. So it's used a lot. And I use these two tools to kind of do the runtime configurations. LXC profiles have a first class support for Cloud-Init, which makes it a bit easier for me. So moving on, this is just a snippet of how our LXC profile looked like. It's not the whole.
Government gets is from this system. So this system, although not on, it's on Red Hat, but the major component of this system, such as we need to process the data.
It's just one Launchpad instance, because
we need to find the we need a data logger for precipitation. The other components of the system are on Ubuntu. Similarly,
project running on your local system, I think you can use a simple like this, create multiple LXC for each of your project instance, and then you can see that I mounted some paths. This is essentially okay.
Guys, 2 minutes la. Tala gare माथिको माइक सिङ भएर
Mic check 1 2 3. Can you hear me? Is it working? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello, mic check, 1, 2, 3. Okay, can you hear me? It's fine? Okay, I'm start. Can you hear me still? Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let me come back to it. Sorry for that. So this is a snippet of my LXD profile. It's so what I'm doing is on the line 4, 5, and 6, I'm essentially creating a file mount, or I'm just mounting a directory from the VM to my local host, so that any changes made inside the VM will be reflected on the on your host, so that you will do all the git operations or any operation that requires authentication on the host side. You don't want to put your secrets within the VM, because you will be possibly there's a use case where you need to export your VM and share it with someone, and you doing that, it also exposes all your secrets to other members of your team. So in order to create a file mount, I specified a path and source. And there's also a thing with mounting files, is that permissions get a bit messy, because there's a user inside the VM which has certain permissions, and if you make changes, then the file will reflect those permissions. And then you have a user on your host which will have certain user ID and group IDs, and if you try to make changes to the file on your host, it will complain of permission error. So you need to essentially create a ID mapping similar to line 10 and 11. Here what I'm saying is that essentially map the user ID 1000 on my host to the user ID 1000 on my VM, and similarly I'm doing the same thing for the group ID. And then at the very end, I'm using Cloud-Init. Cloud-Init's run CMD module on line 14, and I'm adding all the custom logic or user specific configurations that I need. For example, maybe like pulling the public SSH key from Launchpad into the VM, setting up the right git remote repositories, because it's a little tricky to first get the right git URLs for Launchpad. So I kind of do these steps as well for new users to like easily push and pull from their origin and upstream repos. Okay, so right now what we have is, we have built a Launchpad image. We have figured out a way in which we can customize that image for user specific needs on the runtime. Now that leads to the final part of this whole journey, which is how do we distribute this image. So unfortunately, there's no Docker Hub alternative, like a public hosting where you can host your LXD images. But what you can do is, each LXD server has a image server in it, and you can just host LXD server somewhere and use it as your image source. If you don't want to do that, there are much simpler ways as well. You can just put that file somewhere on the internet, and you can use LXC to pull that file. So let's say you set up some automation, Jenkins or GitHub Actions or any pipeline that you want, and you build an image and put it into a file server, maybe an S3 object, and you just, in your scripts, you just say LXC image import URL, and it will work. There are more ways you can do it. You can set up a simple sync stream server. But I think these two ways are probably the easiest way for you. So now that we have sorted everything, let's check the new process and let's see if that makes you excited to set up Launchpad locally and hopefully contribute. So you'll install LXD. You download and run the Rocket Fuel quick start script. This is the script I just made, which automates all the nitty-gritty details of like host side and VM side configs. You go and get some coffee, maybe it takes 5 minutes, and then you just start Launchpad. So I think this is a lot more easier and like friendly for new contributors to contribute back. And yeah, easy, right? So for people who, I hope like I got some people excited about Launchpad. And in order to, I mean, if someone is interested in like contributing back to the project or knowing more about it, there are two places you can essentially start right now. We have the bugs.launchpad.net page, which has a lot of currently open and interesting and also hard bugs to solve. So if you are in for solving hard technical challenges, go to this page. There are a bunch of open bugs. Comment there and just comment that you're interested, and we can work together. And then there's an initiative started by Canonical called Open Documentation Academy. There's a workshop tomorrow around this as well. This is an initiative for new beginners and like people who want to some mentoring on the technical author part. They can go to this page, and like there are I mean you can do contributions around documentation for Launchpad. Launchpad is a project which is also participating in this, so you can also contribute via this. These are some useful links. These are essentially all the docs for the tools that I just mentioned. And yep, that's my time. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are excited about Launchpad. And I'm not sure if we have time. Do we? So yeah, if there are any questions, I'm open to take it.
10 minutes.
Okay. Yep.
So LXD is also like a virtual machine to the like Docker wise, or I didn't understand that part.
Sorry, come again.
Is LXD similar to the Docker or what? I didn't understand.
Yeah. So Docker is an OCI container. I mean, I'm using some jargons here, but you can think of Docker. It's a process-based isolation technique. I mean, what Docker does is it essentially creates a boundary across the process that you want to deploy. LXD kind of resembles more a full system setup in which you have systemd, init, and all the initial process. In Docker, it's just like you have the main process to which the container is linked to. If that process stops, then the container is restarted by Docker daemon. So, I mean, just imagine that you are developing something locally. You would not ideally would want to use Docker, right? Because if you stop your development server, you don't want your container to be restarted. You'll be thrown out of the shell, and then you need to log back in. That's why we went with LXD, because it's just more like a simple machine or a VM that we can use. More questions? Okay, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Cool. Do you want